What's up, everybody? Welcome to Heresy Financial. My name is Joe Brown. Today, I'm going to give a little bit of an update on Basel III. This is something that people in the gold community have been wondering about for a very long time, whether it's actually going to happen, because it looks like if this is actually able to be implemented, it's going to be massive for gold. Bullish. It's going to push the price, potentially push the price of gold up very quickly, very high. And so this has led a lot of people to just question whether this will ever go into effect. It's right now slated to go into a full effect end of June, I think June 28th. And it's also led some people to speculate why these new rules would be laid out at all, especially considering the power that the bullion banks have and the amount of money they make from shorting gold contracts, keeping the price of gold manipulated, bouncing it around at their whim, being able to print these unbacked certificates for gold, really, which is what unallocated gold is. And so we're going to dive into a couple of reasons why it might actually be going through, and a little bit more evidence that shows that this could actually be the real deal here. Keep in mind that everything I'm going to talk about and pretty much everything I'm going to point out here today is in my opinion, it's unverifiable, let alone unverified. And so take all of this with a grain of salt, because I don't know how much of this, if any of this, is completely 100% true. So these are little tidbits that have come out that if they're true, it lends more credence to June 28th, Basel III going through, and gold going through the roof. Just take it with a grain of salt. So this first thing here is it looks like China and Russia have been putting the pressure on the Bank of International Settlements to do something about this. And if you think about it, the U.S. and the U.K. Are basically the ones that have been putting this downward pressure on the price of gold through unbacked gold contracts, benefiting greatly from it. Meanwhile, China and Russia have been biding their time and buying up. They're the largest. I think India is the second largest. I think Russia is the third largest buyer of gold in the world. China is the number one. Just been enjoying the fact that the price of gold, if the price of something is artificially suppressed, that means that it is inherently, by definition, you're able to buy it at a discount. It is cheaper. You can get it cheaper than its intrinsic value, because once that artificial suppression ends and the shorts revert back to a net flat neutral position, that means the price is naturally much higher than it is while that manipulation is going on. So they've been enjoying this, just buying up extra gold during this time. And it looks like recently they've been putting the pressure on the Bank of International Settlements. Maybe they've got enough gold now where they say, we don't need this to continue. Now we want to show our hand, take advantage of the financial position we've gotten ourselves into with all this gold, and let the price of gold just go up now. And if you think about it, since it's the U.S. and the U.K. that are primarily taking advantage, the ones who are benefiting from the manipulation, China and Russia benefiting from that price being low, accumulating all this gold. Now that they have this gold, they would be the ones that would want it to now go up, versus like the U.S. and the U.K. They're not going to put pressure on the Bank of International Settlements to change the rules so that unallocated gold is unable to be accepted as tier 1 collateral now. And so it kind of makes sense if you look at who has big enough muscles to push the Bank of International Settlements. It's not. I mean, it could be the U.S. and the U.K., but it's not going to be, because of the built-in incentives there. They're the ones that are benefiting from the manipulation itself. Whereas Russia and China, they looks like they're the ones that have been putting the pressure on. So if you're not familiar, there's lots of videos, lots of great videos all over YouTube. If you search for Basel III, an explanation of what it goes into, what changes are going to be made with that. But one of the biggest ones is that unallocated gold is no longer able to be included as basically a tier 1 asset. And so it basically strips the power from the bullion banks who are loading the market up with shorts of unallocated gold. In order to suppress the price. And so that's the first thing, is it looks like China and Russia have been putting the pressure on. Which, if that's the case, then in my opinion, that gives me a little bit more hope that Basel III will actually be implemented June 28th. Now, I made a video last week, I think it was, about how China has been loading up on gold again. And it also looks like Russia has changed their gold buying strategy, and they've opened up their national wealth fund to buying gold. And they've bought gold through different vehicles before. And recently, they in 2020, when the pandemic hit and the price of oil went negative, they suspended their gold purchases for a while. But that was the suspension of their gold purchases. I think it was just through it was through one of their funds. It was through let me see if I can pull this up. It wasn't their national wealth fund that ceased the purchase of gold. I think it was their reserve fund, or yeah, I can't find it right now. One of their vehicles ceased the purchase of gold, but it looks like now the information is coming out that since they established a new vehicle called their National Wealth Fund, which is like a sovereign fund, I think it's worth $185 billion right now. They started buying gold through that, and so essentially what's going on here is that through multiple vehicles, they're acquiring as much gold as they can. And through some of them, they don't even report how much they have, which has led some analysts to speculate that if they wanted to, they could fully reserve their currency right now with gold. They have that much gold enough to be able to do that. So it would make sense, if that's the case, for them to want the price of gold to go up, especially if it's like maybe they have enough to reserve their currency 50%. Well, if the price of gold doubles, then that would put them in a much stronger position. And so there's some other theories out there. If you've ever heard of the free gold theory, this is a very old, I don't want to say conspiracy theory, but this is another one of those things that's unverifiable, let alone unverified. Some of the information and data that has been circulated through what's known as free gold. And so I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but one of the implications, if a lot of the information from the free gold data and information theory is true, is basically that countries all over Europe have been just biding their time and allowing each other to accumulate enough gold because they knew at some point they were going to have to replace the dollar as the global reserve currency. And so if that's the case, it would make sense since about 2000, central banks on net around the world have been buying gold. And some banks have sold, some central banks have bought over time. And if they're all at a place right now where they all have enough gold to kind of be on equal footing with each other, it would make sense that at a time like now, they're okay with now that they've suppressed the price and now that they've kept the price down low enough to let everybody in. Now they let go of the controls, let go of the manipulation, let go of the suppression, let the price of gold go up to really strengthen the balance sheets of all the central banks who have accumulated gold over the last 20 years and give them solid footing to start to slowly replace the dollar as a reserve currency. And even, I believe it was the IMF just a couple weeks ago came out and said, that the dollar was going to need to have a lower position or smaller position as a global reserve currency, that there were going to have to be other currencies and other assets involved in order to have a more stable world. And ultimately, that makes sense when you consider the amount of trade that the United States has in the world. I think we make up like 25% of global trade, but the dollar makes up denominates, I think, like 75% of global transactions. And so the role that the dollar plays is much greater globally than the role that the United States actually plays in global trade. And so there's from that unverified position, and again, I don't want to say conspiracy theory, but some of the things that come out from the free gold writings border on that a little bit. But if any of that has a shred of truth, it would make sense that at some point after the central banks have accumulated enough gold for themselves, they would be okay with the price just skyrocketing. And it doesn't matter at that point what happens to the bullion banks. They've played their part, and now they'll get crushed because they've got a lot of shorts, and so they'll probably lose some money. Some of them will probably go bankrupt, become insolvent, but ultimately central banks are the big boys here. So all that being said, with what's going on right now with the price of gold, I would not be surprised at this point either way. And I know that's kind of a disappointing conclusion here. But if it goes through, if Basel III is fully implemented on June 28th here, July is going to be, most likely, July is going to have to be a pretty big month for gold. Then again, we've seen this get delayed before. We know that there are powerful interests that want the price of gold to stay down. So again, I wouldn't be surprised if something happens to kind of soften the blow or delay this even a little bit further. But ultimately, what I always come back to is manipulation always fails in the end. It always does. Manipulation is, by definition, impossible to exist in perpetuity for eternity. And so if the price of gold is artificially suppressed, if it's being manipulated lower, by definition, it must be on sale. You are able to buy it at a discount lower than its intrinsic value if the price is being suppressed. And so if that's the case, the only thing it does is allow buyers to accumulate it on sale, which means that at some point you'll benefit from it. If you don't know where to buy gold, I've got my ultimate guide on how to buy gold, whether it's in an IRA, a brokerage account, through an ETF, through gold mining funds, if you want to store it in your house, if you want to put it in private storage, whatever you want. I cover all the information, the pros and cons to all of it in my ultimate guide to buying gold, linked in the description below. Thanks so much for watching. You guys have a great day.